Hello team, welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS. This is Ukraine War Frontline update for the 24th of October 2023. This will be my last video for the day as I have to shoot off now. Just want to let you know, of course, what all the different lines mean on my map. So I'll refer you to my map key and you can pause it and have a look until your heart's content. Right, let's go to the northeastern sector from Kupiansk to Svatova to Crimea down here, and there is quite a lot of activity by the looks of the number of pins that we see. We're going to start in this northeastern sector by Yahidne and Avdiivka. Andrew Perpetua has some Russian gains all along this front line, closing up that gap between the two mappers, Surat Maps and Andrew Perpetua himself. So, yep, some Russian gains. I don't know why that's that side of the line, so not sure about that one. But nonetheless, yeah, as we can see there, some gains for the Russians. In this area, we have ISW Institute for the Study of War saying geolocated footage published on October the 22nd indicates that Russian forces have marginally advanced southeast of Avdiivka. So Avdiivka is, we have Yahidne here, Ulyansky there, Avdiivka there. So southeast is going to be somewhere around here. So let's have a little, sorry about that. Let's have a little look at the geolocation that is indicated by the ISW. In fact, these are three geolocated pieces of evidence in the ISW. T-80BV of the Kraken Special Unit is firing against Russian infantry in the village of Yahidne. So I'm not sure whether this is the tank or the infantry, but this is where it is all happening. And that is, yep, on the outskirts of Yahidne. So I'd assume that's where the Russians are that are being fired at by the Ukrainians. We have another one here, which is Kraken Special Unit is shelling Russian positions southeast of the village of Avdiivka. So this is Russian positions, and we'll plug that into Google Earth and see that the Russians here are okay. So that is for Andrew Perpetua, that would mean that the Russians are further forward than his map implies, and for Surat Maps, that's within the Russian controlled area, so that means Surat Maps is on it there. And here we have the Kraken Special Unit destroys a Russian tank in the Kharkiv region, and that is positioned here. We'll see where the Russian tank is there. That has been destroyed, and that is again between those two lines. So it could be that Surat Maps is slightly more accurate than Andrew Perpetua's map being here. It does depend on the sources. So here we've got geolocated video evidence rather than say shelling analysis and whatnot. That is the ISW's summary of evidence to support some movement there. Shevtsov, who is someone from the Border Guards, Ukrainians, slated that Russian forces have changed their tactics and are conducting assaults with groups of up to 30 personnel without equipment in the Kupiansk direction, while Russian forces attack with 30 to 50 personnel using heavy equipment in the Lyman direction. So that is to say, up in this area, it's just infantry, mainly without equipment, but down in Lyman, slightly larger groups with equipment. So there's quite a lot of combined arms maneuvers going on down there by the looks of it. And we have here Russian mill blogger claimed that Russian forces are 600 meters away from Avdiivka, although the ISW can only confirm that they're within sort of 2 kilometers at their closest point. So this has been claimed for some time, actually, that the Russians are right at the door of Avdiivka, but that is, I would say, somewhat inaccurate. We have had that claim for I don't know, maybe it's over a month now since they started moving towards Avdiivka, and there were claims that they were, as I say, 600 meters away, and that was from same as previously. So we'll wait to see how that turns out, and that's pretty much that neck of the woods. There is, as you can see from the ISW, lots of activity going on along that front line. So you know, although the maps don't change, it doesn't mean that it's not active, and there is activity still around the Novoherivka area, just west-southwest of Svatova there. Right, we'll come down to the Bakhmut area, and you can see there's quite a bit of activity going on here, different coloured pins to suggest movement from different mappers. We go to the north here, around Yahidne, around the Avdiivka area. We have Syriac maps showing a small area of gain there, which is indicated by what they claim here. So Avdiivka, small area there. Ukrainians have been forced back, according to them. The Russians took control over a new position south of Avdiivka reservoir and forced to the Ukrainian army to withdraw from several positions in this area. So that is Syriac maps there. Pro-Russian mapper stating that they seem to be fairly accurate in some of their claims at the moment. They are up and down Syriac maps. Here we have an area very close to Bakhmut because sorry, not because I'm getting all sorts of messages popping up on my computer. It's distracting me. Here we have the deep state map, the pro-Ukrainian map, is saying that Russians have made some gains just to the west here, which is a challenge for the Ukrainians. We haven't seen much movement here at all for a long time. And then as we come down to the south of Bakhmut, to the railway line and Avdiivka area, Syriac maps has some gains for the Ukrainians here, just a little bit alongside the railway north of Avdiivka there. And then this pocket that they have taken that's more in line with some of the other mappers around here, and a little bit more charitable to the Ukrainians over here. So the Ukrainians having some success around Avdiivka, although Syriac maps suggest that the Russians have control of the railway line they didn't have previously, according to their map. Just this stretch here is a change there. So that is reflected on this map here from Syriac maps, where they say the Ukrainian army crossed the railway line and took control over some positions east of Avdiivka. On the other hand, the Russian army retook some positions on the railway north of Kupiansk. Although that's, if you look at Poulet-Vallon, the French map here, it doesn't seem to agree with that conclusion. Yes, the Ukrainians have taken Russian control, taken land away from Russian control by Avdiivka. They've eaten into the grey zone, I think, up here into the north. But down here, suggestion is that the Ukrainians are pushing and taking land by, to the north of Zelenopilia. So it doesn't quite agree with Syriac maps there, but who knows? I leave my options open there. What is significant is that it appears that, to me at least, that the Russians really are counterattacking pretty much everywhere, doing a good job of trying to seize the initiative. I don't know if they're doing a good job. They are trying to seize the initiative, and they are counterattacking in an awful lot of places. Just before we come down to Avdiivka, just a few more sources to look at as we go to the ISW again. Geolocated footage published on the 22nd indicates that Ukrainian forces have advanced across the railway northeast of Klishivka, confirming prior statements made by the Ukrainian General Staff and Russian mill bloggers. So now we're going to this area just up here. That's the area where I reported yesterday, and over the last few days the Ukrainians have been making advances. We'll look at some of those, some of these sources. We'll look at the geolocation in a second, but just to say that east of Avdiivka, Global War Monitor says that Ukraine has again crossed the railway line and approximately penetrated 700 meters into the Russian control there, just as we saw earlier from Syriac map. So here's a geolocation of Russian special forces shelling Ukrainian entrenched positions. So this indicates that Ukrainians are certainly here. Let's put that into Google Earth. There we go. And yeah, well, that's exactly what all the mappers would agree with. The Ukrainians have pushed at least beyond that railway line. Sorry, I'll correct myself. This shows Ukrainian control, and this would be grey zone here. So all the mappers would allow for Ukrainian control here. at least by my lines. I'd have to check their map to see where they have Ukrainian control, but geolocation puts them in control of the of dugouts, of trenches to the north of the embankment here in the tree line, and of course that'll be fairly difficult, you would assume, for the Russians to take back, but they are counter-attacking, as I say, pretty much everywhere. Right, we'll come down now to Bakhmut. To come down to, it was a tough night last night. We'll come down to Avdiivka here, where you can see a myriad pins here suggesting that the Russians have made gains. All of these suggest Russian gains. That should be slightly more orange. I missed changing that one, sorry. So this is the orange and yellow ones are deep state maps changes that are quite charitable, I guess, for the Russians, more so indeed than the other mapper Syriac maps there. Now, apologies for background noise. I have workmen in upstairs still sorting out issues. We had, my regulars know that I had electricians in for ages trying to sort out fault finding. They pulled up carpets upstairs, so we had to replace carpets in some of the rooms upstairs. It's all connected. It's a bit of a nightmare, and they're banging around now, so apologies for the background noise there. Anyway, Here we have Krasnohorivka north of Avdiivka, where, as I say, lots of activity. All the mappers showing gains for the Russians as far, in some cases, as the railway line towards Stepova. But also, we have Syriac maps still maintaining that the Russians have control of the slag heap there. And in fact, there is, as you can see, Syriac map saying the gains for the Russians around Krasnohorivka, both north and west of Krasnohorivka, and that there is a flag on top of the slag heap, so a Russian flag there. So video footage shows the Russian flag in the garbage hill north of Avdiivka, which was taken by the 114th Motorized Rifle Brigade, former Vostok Brigade of the DPR, 3 days ago. Now the question is that still there? Like how robust would the control be? Is someone just run up, put a flag? But it does look fairly bona fide. Most people are saying it's a grey area now, but it could be that this is under Russian control. The flag is geolocated to this exact point. So those are those kind of divots, if you like, that is over the top here and in the middle of the top of the slag heap. So that definitely tells you that the Russians have been there. Do they control it? Quite possibly. I know people who are pro-Ukrainian would be like, no, it's grey zone. But the Russians do have considerable forces around here. They have lost an awful lot, but in losing an awful lot, they will have been making gains, as you can see from this map at the moment. So really consistent gains are around. Consistent among all the mappers around the Krasnohorivka area. We go to some of the sources I have here. Russian sources are launching heavy attacks, says Kiev Independent, in many sectors of the Eastern Front, including Avdiivka, Kupiansk, Lyman, Bakhmut, and Marinka directions, the General Staff of Ukraine's Armed Forces reported. So that's the idea that, they are attacking in a lot of places. Now, here Military Lab says geolocated footage confirms that now Ukrainian mechanized forces, and this is coming from this morning, this is coming from yesterday, sorry. So again, this is possibly out of date now, but this is the idea that Ukrainian forces were counter-attacking in that area across the railway, east of Stepova. At the same time, the Ukrainians were counter-attacking in the southern part of the front line near Pervomaisky and Pisky. So there is counter-attacks, attacks, counter-attacks, counter-attacks, counter-attacks. Both sides are fighting really hard to take control of these areas. We have Rob Lee saying that Ukraine has shifted elements from the 47th Mechanized Brigade to the Avdiivka front, and we're hearing of Bradleys being used. I reported that yesterday. Deep States map shows that Russian gains to the west and southwest of Krasnohorivka over the past 4 days, which you can see on my map, the Deep State gains. They say Russia still has reserves and is increasingly continuing assaults with infantry instead of armor, which is something we'd heard just earlier as well, taking place in the northern part by Kupiansk. So they aren't afraid to change things up and not wanting to lose armor, or maybe they don't have the armor to lose. They are leading with their infantry. And then here we have Global War Monitor saying north of Krasnoyarivka, Ukraine has pushed Russia back to the railway line. So this is in this area here. So we have that point sticking out there. Well, it could be that that is now no longer under control of the Russians, but we'll see that Surat map still has that under Russian control. But certainly very dynamic around there, and the Russians really are pushing hard to take Avdiivka. If we go to the ISW, they say Russian sources claim that Russian forces have advanced almost 2 kilometers in the Avdiivka area over the past few days. Russian mail bloggers claim that Russian forces advanced near Pervomaisky, that's to the south, and to the railway line north of the waste heap, northwest of Avdiivka, where we've just been. A Ukrainian source stated that the waste heap is a contested grey zone. And a Russian mail blogger claimed on the 22nd that Russian forces are unable to take control of the waste heap due to heavy Ukrainian artillery fire. But as mentioned, that could all be up in the air, really. I just don't know who has control. Another Russian mail blogger claimed on the 22nd that Russian forces broke through on the waste heap near the waste heap and the railway near Stepova and pushed the Ukrainian forces back near Severny and Spartak in the past week. This is what we have heard previously, that the Russians have indeed pushed the Ukrainians back around Spartak to this road, perhaps trying to get beyond it, but it's, as I've said before, heavily fortified within the forest area by Spartak, and there are pushes back and forward around Severny and Vodyany and between Vodyany and Opitny. So the Russians did have some gains there. There are different claims as to the successes of either side around Severny, but they're certainly pushing. Ukrainians have been trying to push south of Pervomaisky and in towards Pisky, but I've got no further information on any potential successes or failures there. So really dynamic, a lot of stuff happening. What we can definitely say is Russia really want this. And then it gets to the whole Bakhmut calculus, doesn't it? That if Russia really want it, does that mean that Ukraine can't let them have that PR gain? But is it more than just a PR thing? Does this attrite Russian troops? Does it fix Russian troops? Is it actually more? But I would argue that Avdiivka is more strategically useful than Bakhmut by quite a distance. I think it's a real thorn in the side for the DPR, for the Donetsk People's Republic, and the control of Donetsk. It allows the Ukrainians to shell military targets within Donetsk city. So I think there is definitely a greater use for the Russians in taking Avdiivka than taking Bakhmut, which I think really did essentially come down to politics. But yeah, there you go. That's Avdiivka. A lot going on there, and that's, I've been talking about that every single day now since the 10th, in terms of the huge Russian losses and it being a Pyrrhic victory. We are perhaps seeing a few areas, particularly to the north, where that kind of element of Pyrrhic victory might be materializing. Then when we come down to the southern Donetsk front on the way to Zaporizhia, we have the Velika Novosilka salient. A few gains, as according to, although I haven't got it marked here, according to Deep State map, there's some gains there. We have not too much to say about this area in terms of sources. When we go to the ISW, there is activity there. There's also activity around Pobieda and Novomikhailivka on the way down to this sector. So that's over here and Vuhledar area. But anyway, in the Velika Novosilka sector, several Russian sources claim that Russian forces counterattack and advance nearly 3 kilometers near Pryutne. Although the available geolocated footage only confirms that Russian forces have advanced less than 1 kilometer in that area. So again, there might be a difference between what Russians claim and what the reality is. And that might be the case here around Pryutne, where Surat maps had them improving their lot just north of the village by this sort of ridge, ravine sort of water feature there. But anyway, we'll keep an eye on that area too. When we come to the west to Robotyne, considering this is supposed to be the kind of hot point, particularly of the Ukrainian counteroffensive, it's relatively stable. There are no confirmed gains from either side there. As ISW here says, the Ukrainians did not make any claimed or confirmed gains. They haven't claimed to make any gains. There are no confirmation of any gains there. So it's fairly stable, and it all seems to be happening in Avdiivka, doesn't it? And also Kherson. So we're going to actually leave that axis or this whole southern axis already, not say too much about Robotyne, and we're going to come down to some fairly arguably decent gains for the Ukrainians on the Kherson front, although all the usual caveats and grains, pinches and blocks of salt are to be taken here. There's a lot of operational security and a lot of over-egged claims, I think, by the Russians about what the Ukrainians have doing and are doing. Syriac Maps says that the situation in the Kherson front, the Russian army is trying to recover the lost area close to Krinky. The Ukrainian army managed to increase the operations northwest of Pidstepny, in which troops have the control over the sector of the Dnieper shore. So this is a case of several places being active at once along here, a number of different bridgeheads. Obviously, it started with Antonivsky Bridge, and one presumes that it's still an active area. Then there were claims about a bit further up the river, and then possibly even further down the river from there too. The Ukrainians have control over the very edge here, robust control there, and are trying to get control all the way along here, one would suppose, to give them a greater chance of finding somewhere that they can get large amounts of equipment across. There were claims of the Ukrainians having pontoon bridges of some variety, but I've not seen any confirmation of that or any evidence of that. And I think they were coming, well, that's military summary, which is fairly pro-Russian. Anyway, so Syriac Maps says that. Global War Monitor similarly says in the Dnipro River area, Ukraine has expanded another one of its bridgeheads, this one being the Pidstepny one. So that's in line with what Syriac Maps was saying there. And Pidstepny is by Pischanivka and Poima. There were claims that they'd taken control of the outskirts, or taken control of Poima. That's what Rebar originally said, but I don't know that anyone else really agreed with that. But there's certainly activity around here, and it could be that that this bridgehead has indeed been expanded as claimed. Here, where we go back to Institute for the Study of War, that talks quite a lot about the Kherson area, says that Russian sources claim that Russian forces pushed Ukrainian forces back from some newly captured Ukrainian positions on the left bank, but noted the Ukrainian forces still maintain a presence on the east bank. Two prominent Russian mill bloggers claim that Russian forces counterattacked and pushed Ukrainian troops back from Krinky as well. Geolocated footage posted yesterday confirms that Ukrainian forces advanced to positions north of Pidstepny, and this is what the mappers are talking about. Here we have that. I'm not going to show you that, but a Russian Ghoul unit FPV drone attacks the Ukrainian infantry here, so we know that Ukrainian infantry is at this position. If I can copy that and put that here. So this is confirmed Ukrainian presence there, which is no wonder that the mappers have increased the Ukrainian, or pushed back the Russian defensive line there. That's both Andrew Perpetua with that lighter blue pin and Syriac Maps with the darker blue pins there. So the Ukrainians geolocated to there means that they do have some presence. Although it might not be Ukrainian control, it will push the grey zone forward and into the Russian controlled area. So the Russian defensive line is pushed back there. Just to continue, Russian sources claim that Ukrainian forces continue to operate on the east bank between Krinky and Pidstepny, and warn that Ukrainian troops hope to break through the Pidstepny-Pischanivka line towards Oleshki. Ukrainian military observer Moshevets noted that Russian forces appear to be constructing a mobile tactical reserve group comprising of motorized rifle units and battalions of various private military companies, PMCs, in the Oleshki area to quickly deploy small groups into contested areas on the east bank. So these are like much more fluid kind of defense defensive capabilities with these rapid deployment groups made up, as mentioned, of private military companies, your Wagner-style groups, Redoute maybe, operating around there. Anyway, we'll keep a very close eye on that, because this is, I think, turning out to be a very interesting area of the frontline map, but also keep an eye on what happens in Avdiivka, where the Russians are still trying desperately to encircle Avdiivka and get some significant victory there, because they are low on victories, I guess, over the last year. Really, Bakhmut they're struggling really to have made the most use of that, to shout about it too much, because it's really still contested, and everywhere else it's just grinding into positional battles, unfortunately the Ukrainians are struggling themselves to make any great advances. I'm also waiting to hear of more ATACMS usage. That would be good, wouldn't it? We saw those 2 airports get hit, and there are still strikes from other ordnance, but not really ATACMS yet at the moment. So that's a shame for the pro-Ukrainian point of view. Anyway, before the noise gets too crazy in the background, apologies for any of that during the recording. It's why I've rushed this and been a little bit distracted. So hopefully going forward, that won't be the case. But yes, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for your support. Please like, subscribe and share. And I will be talking to you probably again tomorrow sometime. Toodle pips.